as we are rounding out our two-day summit with our closing session. Thank you again to all those who are joining us for our last session of the third annual Mobile Market Summit. Some familiar faces, just to close out the conversation. I wanted to speak a little bit about our Mobile Market Coalition that is in the works. And this session is talking really forward-looking. We're talking about all of the projects on the horizon, things that we're looking forward to working on with the community, and things that we've learned also from the summit itself in the past year. So I am just going to share a few slides to guide my conversation. So the Mobile Market Coalition is an idea that kind of came to fruition during our COVID-19 calls last year. For those who weren't involved, the COVID-19 calls were a weekly and then bi-weekly call of mobile market operators. It was really an open forum, right, for us to share experiences, concerns, to troubleshoot issues, really just a space for operators to get together, and whether it was commiserate or crowdsource, it was a very fruitful conversation every week to identify issues and successes and share the barriers and also how we overcame those barriers during the pandemic. So the Mobile Market Coalition kind of percolated out of those discussions, right? And now we need a coalition, we need a central body to really bolster all of these conversations we're having as mobile market operators. And this is something that we started working on last year and are continuing to develop. I wanted to just shout out some of our subcommittee members. We have a advisory board of approximately 14 mobile market operators who are all serving on these different planning subcommittees, but these are our individual subcommittees in the first stage of developing the coalition, and their chairs. We have Roberta Cosentino, who we spoke with yesterday. She's the Mobile Market Program Manager at the Chester County Food Bank in Pennsylvania. She's focusing on strategic planning with her group, talking about mission statements and vision statements, defining mobile markets, organizational structure, so how the coalition will operate, chaired by Andy Olive, the Food Access Program Director at Fresh Approach out in California. Hi, Andy and team. Thank you so much for joining us today and also for your work on the coalition. And then on the call live now, Frederick Laforge, the co-founder and CEO of the Farmer's Truck. He's taking up the website and marketing planning subcommittee. So thank you to those individuals and their subcommittees for working on the coalition and continuing to work on the coalition. And just a little bit on our goals. What Leah and I were talking about in the data session, we really want to work on this mobile markets map, right? We want to be able to identify where mobile markets are operating. This is something Matt talked about as well in Matt and Elisa's session. Understanding where mobile markets are, what communities they're serving, overlaps, and then also models and how we can learn from one another across the United States and Canada, across North America. We want to be able to crowdsource resources, and this is what we're always trying to do, especially on our team with the Veggie Van study and the toolkit. We want to always be able to provide best practices from mobile market operators that we're working with, right? And be able to pick each other's brains and put together, like we had talked about, some of these grant like sharing venues and ways to collaborate and also just share knowledge. We want to work towards recognition of mobile markets as major players within food systems on a federal funding level. So, you know, having recognition, having a definition. So when you're applying for a grant on a federal level from the USDA, when you say, we operate a mobile market, there's a specific definition and a specific identity when you say mobile market. We want to develop that. And that leads into establishing this singular umbrella definition of a mobile market so that that language can be mobilized in grant applications, in partnerships, et cetera, in research as well. And then also working to standardize incentive programs to create incentive programs that can be implemented across mobile markets, reduce barriers, whether it's SNAP or like we were talking about WIC, or creating new incentive programs, being able to foster that as a collective. And just for anyone interested, you can reach out to the VeggieVan study team at our contact us at myveggievan.org email if you're interested in getting involved. And with that, I will turn over to Leah Vermont.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, so I just wanted to continue that conversation, right? So, well, first I wanted to thank everybody for joining us, listening, contributing today. But yeah, I just wanted to continue that conversation more about the critical role of networking and sharing resources as we're doing here today at the summit, as well as our mission of further legitimizing the mobile market field through continuing to build this evidence base and support for this food access work. We're really focused on figuring out the best ways to disseminate this knowledge and ensure resources are shared effectively and efficiently. You know, a lot of organizations, you're out there on the ground every day. You might not have the time to spend on this piece. And so we're really hoping to help provide that support for that foundation. So, you know, instead of reinventing the wheel, the goal here is instead to focus on advancing the science of practice for mobile markets. We know that the mobile market community is hungry for resources and hands-on assistance. We are into our annual anniversary for when we launched our VeggieVan toolkit last year at this time. And so far it's been accessed almost 300 times. And this is ranging from operators to farmers, producers, funders, researchers, and many other interested people in this work, which is super cool and inspiring that there's so much interest right now. And the types of resources folks are interested in, it covers the spectrum, as does the level of support that they need. But we are seeing really a desire to have a lot more of hands-on support. We're also hearing and seeing that people, you know, want help with all of it, or they're at the other side where they're like, yeah, we need help. We don't know what we need, right? So it's like, you don't know what you need, it's hard to really ask for help sometimes. So to address this challenge, you know, we've been thinking a lot about how can we, you know, develop a service structure to make it more comprehensive and more accessible to a wider audience beyond just, you know, our research partners that we work with. So we worked on developing a VeggieVan Center, training center. And at the core of this center is still that toolkit that we've been talking a lot about. And I'm not going to go into the details. We've done that before. We're happy to meet with you one-on-one to give you orientation to that. But just briefly, the toolkit is freely available on our website. It's a living document. It's continuously being updated and informed by our current research, by best practices, case studies from operators across the country. There is a lot of opportunity here, as we've been talking about, to bolster this resources. So things like we just were talking about earlier, best practices for an ambassador program and things like that. Anne touched on this. We'll be relaunching our monthly webinars, and that's a piece of this toolkit. You know, it's also this piece of ensuring that we're providing a space for this continued networking, right? That's outside of the summit, so that we're continuing to have a lot more interactive dialogue with each other on a more frequent basis. We're also creating an advisory committee, so experts with deep knowledge and experience in various areas. And the goal would be to have these advisory committee leads spear working groups to develop out various parts of the toolkit. So the next band of service that would be offered is a more personalized approach. So not just the toolkit, but more one-on-one support. And this is a central piece of what we're already doing with our current research partners on the VeggieVan study. Lots of options in here. That's the point, though. The organization drives the bus, right? So you get as little or as much assistance as you need. And we can go through a couple of examples of what this might look like in terms of a spectrum of options or how you might engage with these resources. So looking at, for example, program evaluation on one side of the spectrum, you're looking at accessing the toolkit. So again, these are very general resources, templates, samples, case studies. And then as you move on, you're getting more personalized help. So we would sit down with you and we could work on developing a personalized evaluation plan, that best serves you and your community that you actually implement. Or if you want or need to focus your resources somewhere else, outsource. We have the staff to do this work for you if needed. Talking a lot about financial support, or the need for financial support and sustainability. So just as another example of how you might engage with this content, again, one side, we have just the toolkit, as Anne mentioned. We'll be expanding this to include lots more things. So one would be that repository of successful grant applications. We're also putting together a working bibliography of mobile market research so that you can go in there and have access or easily access this stuff to cite for your proposals. At the other end, we might look at something like a sustainability analysis. So somebody was asking about this, and we were, I think we referred to it if you're interested in this. And we'll be presenting on this in a lot more detail in May. But this is a really cool tool that we're developing, and it uses financial data from a large sample of markets that we've been working with. And you're able to plug in your own financials to be able to not only compare across markets, but also identify things that can improve your personal or your organization's personal sustainability. So what does it look like if you introduce additional incentive programs or corporate sponsorships? Individual markets might intuitively know what's likely to be good for their financial health, but this will be able to give data-driven feedback on those decisions. So this next band is the most comprehensive. It includes the toolkit, it includes that one-on-one support, all within a structured course format, something we're calling Mobile Market 101. So with this, we would be able to guide you through the process of starting or expanding a mobile market in a systematic, efficient way. And though it's structured, there's flexibility built in, right? So it's important for us that we are meeting organizations where they're at. We're not here to impose requirements or say that there's only one way, this is the right way, but rather we provide guidance on best practices and help you make decisions that are best for you and your community. It's designed to be a cohort model. So it's meant to be taken with at least 3 other organizations, although you can take it on your own if you want. This allows you all to travel together through this process and learn and network while you're doing it. We are also going to have experts presenting a large majority of the content. It will not just be us talking at you. So our first cohort actually starts this month, which we're really excited about, and we'll have a second cohort starting this summer. So if this seems like, you're in a place where you're looking to get a bit more structured, comprehensive assistance for your organization, reach out to us. The structure of the training center model was developed to serve all members of the mobile market community. So again, if you're just entering this space or reimagining your approach, we can provide that overview. It's also really valuable to funders because you can report and say, hey, look, we're using this evidence-based toolkit, we're using this course, and all in the service of increasing success for our outcomes in our programming. For more established markets, you know, of course, they can still access resources, but we are also hoping that this model allows, you know, to alleviate some of the burden that they may be having in terms of always being that go-to person, right? So they're doing a lot of explaining over and over and over again. And so, you know, that can still happen, but instead, maybe sometimes they're able to redirect people to the service center or to the toolkit. And instead, perhaps they move into more of that advisory committee. As I mentioned, we'll be creating that committee. It will be, there'll be paid positions, which will be, again, in the service of, you know, those folks who are really, really experienced and expert in the field, just trying to value their time. For funders, we've been talking with funders and they're seeing a couple different ways that they can incorporate this. So either requiring the course for grantees or funding this technical assistance directly. So, you know, in addition to making sure that all of these resources are effectively crowdsourced and shared, we really strongly believe in the practitioner research partnerships and the ability for those to drive this field forward. And, you know, among other research that we're doing, this is just a highlight. We're currently researching best practices for implementation, you know, so testing out different types of technical assistance models. The whole idea is to better understand what things are working for mobile markets. We'll likely be releasing an RFP for this soon. As Anne mentioned, we have an incentive program that we're working on, and funding for that program, we're still accepting applications if you want to be involved. There was a lot of discussion about rural markets and interest with that. We are also interested in moving toward doing more research with rural markets. So if that's you, let us know. And as Fred will talk about shortly, we're partnering with Farmers Truck and Fresh Approach on a really cool pilot project. And just, you know, if you're through partnering with us with any of this research, you'll have access to a lot of our services for free, which is great. So lastly, I just wanted to, you know, we've talked a lot about, we want to hear your voice, the voice of this community. And so I think, you know, through the work of the coalition, through our work at the Service Center, we're trying to really, we want to know how best to do that, right? So we have the summit, we have webinars, we have the listserv, you know, should we bring back Slack? We have all different types of things. So we'll be putting a lot of these questions in the post-summit survey to get your feedback as well, to see how you want to be involved and tools you'd like to see to help us continue this networking process moving forward. Okay, thanks.
I guess I'll go next. Okay. So I'm going to be short and sweet. So we're working on, I guess, a quick update from the Farmers Truck, where we're at. 2020 was a nightmare when it comes to manufacturing anything. If you've heard about all the supply chain issues, the microchip issues for chassis, the RV industry that everybody wants to get a camper van or an RV to go, and then, you know, taking all the chassis that we need for the mobile market. So we've had a lot of challenges, but now we're in a better place and we're able to fulfill more orders. And so if you're looking for a mobile market, we would love to help out. We are working on different designs. Winter market, so a design that creates a space that's heated for the customer and the people inside serving the customers. We're working on different refrigeration systems, very efficient refrigeration systems that can also freeze. We're working on an indoor market model where you can drive to a certain location and do a pop-up market quite easily, roll your market inside of a location and be in a climate control environment for your customers. So we have all kinds of ideas. We're always listening to the needs of the community and trying to figure out how to best address it and design products around that and services. The big thing we're doing this summer is we're launching a pilot in California, collaborating with the Veggie Van and Fresh Approach. The goal of the pilot is to test a new business model, which is a business model that focuses on social impact and financial sustainability. So how to balance that equation is what we're going to try to figure out this summer. Essentially, the pilot also is launching what we call mobile market as a service. The concept is to make a mobile market as accessible as possible. So we're talking about leasing the vehicle, so it's easy to get a vehicle right away instead of raising all the money. We're talking about marketing services to help you make sure that people will come to the truck and you keep that your community engaged. We're talking about coaching services to help you set up the truck and make sure that you have even helping you hire the right staff. So we're looking at the challenge in a holistic manner, and we're going to learn a lot this summer through that pilot. And I guess that's it for me. That's the highlight of this year, and we look forward to the next Mobile Market Summit.
All right, thanks so much, Fred. So I have the pleasure of closing out the summit today. I want to start by thanking all of our speakers. I'm especially grateful to have had Davida Davison as our keynote speaker. So I met Davida when she spoke at a conference 2 years ago in Detroit, and I have to admit I've been a little obsessed with her work and her organization since then, and everything that she was saying yesterday, I was like, yes, this is exactly what we're thinking. This is what we want to do. So I feel very fortunate that she agreed to come and share some of her wisdom with our mobile market community. I'm also grateful to all of our speakers and panelists. Many of these are the same folks who have led sessions in the past and have been working to develop our Mobile Market Coalition. We very much appreciate their dedication to this community, and we really hope that we can entice more of you to join them in planning and leadership in this community. We really want to increase the number of voices that we have at the table as we expand our Mobile Market Coalition and host future summits and training opportunities. So despite having an abbreviated virtual summit this year, I think we've covered a lot of ground. As Elise was saying to me earlier today, the summit's really our opportunity to re-energize and get re-inspired with our work. And I know that's what it is for me. And I just, spend the whole time taking notes and getting so many great ideas. And I want to reflect on some of the themes I've seen this year. So one of the first notable things is I think some of our language has changed from last year. While we had all mostly moved away from using the term food desert, the term food apartheid seems to be quickly entering our lexicon. So that's one change that we've seen. More rural markets have been joining than in the past, and there's a lot of enthusiasm for figuring out how to adapt markets to new communities. So as Leah mentioned, we are going to be working with some new cohorts and for our training, and one of those will be focused on rural mobile markets. And so our team will be engaging some of those of you who are already doing this work over the next few months, and maybe reaching out to those who are already working in rural spaces to help expand our resources and learn from you as well. Another theme I saw was the idea of using mobile markets. I know a lot of you already have many different partnerships in the community, but really this idea of creating spaces within our communities or community hubs that even though markets are mobile, that they could still be a place for people to come together and really collaborate with other partnerships. Everybody kept coming back and talking to the idea about voter registration, but this is something I've seen as a role for mobile markets and really wanted to be able to expand on. And I know we're all busy doing the work of selling food, but thinking about how we can have this partnership to bring in other services that the community needs and have them in one place. Can we do cancer screenings? Can we do blood pressure checks? Can we do other things? And I know many of you are doing that, but just thinking about what are those other partnerships and ways that we can work together. Obviously, this year, the theme of COVID-19 has been huge, and but what really strikes me is the ability of mobile markets to adapt and change and meet the needs of the community during COVID-19, and whether that was by offering free food or donation only food or home delivery or pre-ordered food. And I'd really like to spend more time thinking with all of you about the role that mobile markets play not only in the food system, but also in disaster recovery in general. Given the increasing prevalence of natural disasters and the likelihood of future pandemics, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but being able to take what we've done over the last year and really create a template for disaster recovery may be a valuable exercise for the mobile market community. So we know that the federal policy landscape is changing, especially related to food and income supports for lower income families. So this really positions mobile markets to be leaders in this area. You know, when I first started working in mobile markets, I always used to talk about the idea that mobile markets were this temporary solution, that our goal was to show that there was demand in these in communities that maybe the traditional food system had left behind, and that by showing that we could convince them to come in, and that there'd be all these supermarkets and in these communities. And I think, you know, Davida really hit on the point with the idea of food apartheid, that it's not really about the fact that we need to show demand. It's really that there have been these systematic racist policies that have been affecting bringing supermarkets to communities that really need them. And, you know, mobile markets are now, in my mind, a solution to that, and a more important and long-term piece of the food system. And because of that, we're not just thinking about them as a temporary solution. This theme of sustainability just keeps coming up over and over again. And whether that's being sustainable through our community engagement, whether that's being sustainable through, as Fred mentioned yesterday, having a vehicle that that doesn't break down, so that you can make sure you're reliably going to a community and you can build that trust, or whether that's through using SNAP and incentive programs to help boost the affordability of your produce and the success of your market, or through other types of fundings, grants, and corporate partnerships. So I think that's going to continue to be a really important theme to look at as we position ourselves as a more longer term and important piece of the food system. So lastly, I'm really excited about all the training opportunities that are going to be available for new and expanding markets, and we really hope to connect with you over the next year to participate in webinars and other sessions. And thank you again for being here, and we will see you soon. Have a wonderful weekend.